Scar's corruption arc in Mufasa was disappointing. Am I surprised? No. Am I belligerent? Yes. Am I depraved? Also yes. Am I gonna make a video about it? You betcha. If you know anything about me, you know I love a good corruption arc. I've talked about how much I love villains on this channel, and I love corruption arcs arguably even more, if possible. It just wrecks you to have to watch a likable and morally upright character gradually give in to their flaws and become what they always hated or feared. It's a completely different dynamic from just killing a character off. It genuinely gets under your skin, especially when you have a really endearing relationship between two characters at the beginning, and then as that character slowly gets corrupted, you get to see them drift apart while one character clings to their morals even though they're losing a friend over it. Nice little friends to enemies dynamic. So did Mufasa end up doing any of this? Spoiler alert, no. Actually, it went for the most frustrating route possible, setting up a lot of great character beats and then not delivering on any of them. Let me explain. Before we get into the actual corruption arc, there were some lesser flaws I wanted to address as well. If you haven't seen this movie, you don't need to get Disney Plus just to watch it. It's really not worth it, and I don't recommend wasting your money, but if you're interested, there will be spoilers from here on out. So the movie actually kind of opens as a sequel to The Lion King 2019, with Simba just getting up on Pride Rock and announcing to the Pride Lands that his family is growing, which I'm gonna be honest, was one of the most cringe things I've seen on screen in a while. Just standing on Pride Rock and talking at us like, here's what you missed on Mufasa. And rewatching the original Lion King for this video, it really struck me how impactful that first scene was, with the visuals and the music working together to tell us practically the same information that Simba just told us, just with no dialogue. What a concept, right? Like, can I even tell you how much more powerful that was? Do I need to? Like, speaking of forgetting what made the original great. Also, the nostalgia is a heavy crutch in this movie. They constantly just replay the same musical themes from the original movie, which I admit I did lean in closer to listen to that, but it just shows that the only really good things from this franchise were already achieved long ago. Like, they're done. And of course, as everybody else has pointed out, Timon and Pumbaa. They were like two overly obnoxious 8.5-year-old cousins in this movie. Their presence was absolutely pointless, and they were constantly running around being nothing but irritating. None of their jokes landed unless their goal was a one-way ticket to Cringe City. Every time they came on screen, I started thinking longingly of death. Sorry, what was that? Got a bit too real for a second there. Anyway, there are several lines that are just blatantly stating something that's clearly for the benefit of the audience.
My parents spoke of Milele often.
And last, but certainly not least egregious, there were really no emotional themes that actually hit me in this movie, which is like the #1 criteria I use to evaluate whether a movie is good. The moments where characters should have shown like interesting emotional change were just filled with superficial repeating lines and swelling music that had no connection to anybody's emotional development. Mufasa using Taka's mom's hunting techniques to win against the White Lion had absolutely nothing to do with any themes that were building up in the movie, and neither did Kiara roaring at the rain. Like, that wasn't connected to anything that happened in Mufasa's tale. Like, seriously, did I miss something? It seemed like what the movie was trying to do was set up some theme about how family bonds didn't need to be blood, and how animals of different species can all work together and fight for each other. And I think if they wanted to, you know, actually make the movie coherent, they could have made that apply to Kiara by having her find out she was adopted or something. She could struggle with that throughout the movie. She could express that to Rafiki, and he could go, well, I have a story about how bonds between brothers can be not only blood. Then of course I suppose you'd have to deal with the fact that Scar ended up betraying him, but it was about Rafiki. You know, Rafiki and Mufasa were brothers. Like, I mean, if that had been the case, at least her roaring at the rain would have had some kind of relevance to the tale, because Rafiki was able to teach her that she can still be a part of her family without being fully related to them. Well, that's everything from my notes, so now let's get into Scar's corruption arc. Hi. If you're watching this, first off, I want to thank you. Part of me still can't believe the attention my channel has gotten, or feel like I deserve it, but that's neither here nor there. And what I'm about to announce would never have been possible without you guys, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. Things have been scary recently in the United States, especially for LGBTQ people like myself, my family, and my closest friends. Recently, the Trump administration ordered to cease all funding for the specialized LGBTQ services under the National Suicide Hotline 988. This move is just one part of a long, troubling line of unconstitutional attempts to remove our rights to live, be, and love the way we do. And there seems to be very little resistance to what they're trying to do right now from any branch of government. For me, the only thing that eases my anxiety about all this is the fact that advocacy organizations like the Trevor Project still exist. The Trevor Project is a nationwide organization that focuses on preventing suicide in LGBTQ youth. They provide evidence-based crisis counseling through their own LGBTQ suicide prevention hotline, which is on screen now. The Trevor Project has directly helped some of my closest friends when they were in crisis, and now with the changes to the national hotline, their services will be more in demand than ever before. On top of providing counseling services, the Trevor Project also advocates for LGBTQ rights in local, state, and federal governments, and has been involved with the passage of bills protecting gender-affirming care and banning conversion therapy in Minnesota and Pennsylvania. With everything that's going on, it's a huge comfort to know that there are people out there who know what they're doing and are working to make real legislative change to protect me and my loved ones. And that's why I want to give the Trevor Project the biggest boost I can so they can keep fighting for us for as long as possible. I'll be donating a portion of my ad revenue from last month to the Trevor Project as soon as it comes in. But I think we can make more of an impact together. So if you are able, and if you too are fed up with the current administration's attempts to erase our identities, I encourage you to donate as much as you can to their cause. The fundraiser will be running on my channel until July 23rd. You can find it directly underneath this video if you want to donate. Thank you so much for your generosity and your time. Now back to the CG lion nonsense. So Mufasa is the story of Mufasa.
Yes, this floor is made out of floor.
Before Pride Rock and even before the Pride Lands, Mufasa was apparently just a normal lion cub not in line to become king of anything. And Scar, or Taka, was the son of some king of some other pride entirely, so he actually was in line to become king, and the two were never even related in the first place. Retcon of the century, but okay. Are you telling me this conversation at the beginning of Lion King 1, where Scar literally uses the phrase gene pool?
When it comes to brute strength, I'm afraid I'm at the shallow end of the gene pool.
Did that mean nothing to you? Okay, I'm just not even gonna ask. I was under the impression that in the original movie, Scar had been bitter at Mufasa his whole life because Mufasa got to become king simply because he was older than him. But okay, I guess that wasn't really a crucial plot point or anything. So Mufasa ends up getting separated from his family in a big flood, and Taka rescues him and brings him home to get adopted into his family. And they become brothers. Not just best friends, mind you, but brothers. That's how close their relationship is. And they sing a song together about being brothers. The song itself is passable. It repeats the same line like one too many times.
I always wanted a brother. I always wanted a brother.
Mother, may I have some oats?
But I have to admit, it did get stuck in my head for almost every time I heard it. So it's catchy, it's got that going for it. Better than that though, the lyrics actually do an okay job of expressing their dynamic and personalities. My favorite is in the second verse where Taka tells Mufasa when he's king, the birds will do as they're told. And Mufasa's like, no, you gotta let them be free. They look down on us from above. And then after that line, instead of letting the disagreement get to them, they just kind of brush it off and keep goofing around and being besties. And it really does a lot to strengthen their relationship for the audience. We see that they have different life philosophies and disagree about something fundamental, but despite that, they're able to put aside their differences and continue to treat each other with respect. And that tells us that they really deeply care about each other, that they're willing to overlook these disagreements. It's a great way to get the audience invested in their relationship. So time skip to Mufasa and Taka a little bit older. They've grown up together, and one day while Mufasa is hunting, he sees some white lions that are on the prowl try to kill them for some reason. That's never quite explained. So Mufasa defends himself and Taka's mother and kills one of the white lions, and they go back to warn the pride that the rest of them are coming to get revenge, I guess. And Taka's dad tells him to run away from the pride to preserve their royal line. And since they're brothers, Mufasa goes with him to protect him and such. So now they're out on their own. They've assumed the white lions have killed the rest of Taka's pride, which is crazy. But, you know, they seem to be doing just fine about it. I mean, they don't seem to be upset about it, so guess that's good. And who should they meet but Sarabi, Mufasa's future mate, prowling around in the grass following them. So let's pause for a minute here and get this straight. Mufasa was never actually in line to become king at all, and Scar was. So, since we know that Scar is going to betray Mufasa and they're going to become enemies, wouldn't one think this would lead to some kind of power struggle where Mufasa, finds out he was actually royal blood all along and takes control of the Pride Lands, and Scar feels snubbed and their close relationship starts to slowly crumble as Scar gives into his thirst for control and power. Which, by the way, was also set up in the song when he says he wants to control the birds. You would think so, wouldn't you? Unfortunately, you would be wrong. You will never guess what they actually went with to hinge Scar's entire corruption arc around. Give it 3 guesses. Come on, put them in the comments, I'll wait. I'll give you a hint. Listen to this line Scar sings.
What the flecks of gold in your mane, Sarabi, you and me, we go together.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
They decided to hinge Scar's entire corruption arc around a love triangle. The obnoxious trope from YA romance novels love triangle. That's how they decided to motivate Scar killing Mufasa. I can't overstate the amount of sheer disappointment I felt when I heard this line. Because when I started watching this movie, aside from the overwhelming urge to barf at all these butt-ugly photorealistic animations, I actually found myself a little bit invested in the story. Shocking, I know. They were so close as kids, and they did such a good job of making us care about the relationship that I was genuinely kind of hooked on what could possibly go wrong that would tear them apart and make them the bitter enemies that they were in the original. But when I heard Scar sing this line, all of my intrigue just evaporated. Like, imagine if you had been drinking a really great horchata and then suddenly it just disappeared from your cup, just disseminated into the stratosphere. That's what it felt like to watch this movie, just pure unbridled agony. Where before it was emotionally engaging and mysterious, now in less than a second, it became clear and predictable how they were going to become enemies. And what's more, it completely abandoned any semblance of depth that Taka had as a character. Because we spent the entire beginning setting up what a great relationship Taka and Mufasa had and how they would set aside huge disagreements for each other and defend each other to the death. And Taka even let Mufasa win a race with him because he wanted him to be able to become his brother. Like, these characters were sacrificing things for each other. This relationship was real. And then all it took was a stupid little romantic rivalry to make him throw all that away, and this relationship the audience was actually invested in was just, thrown out the window. And I'm not just saying this because of the bare fact that it was a romantic rivalry. Like, I'm not one to trash on a trope just because it's tropey. Like, there are ways pretty much any trope can be done right. I'm saying this because the romantic rivalry they depicted was genuinely shallow. It was not set up properly to make the audience believe it was that important to Scar. If they had done a better job making us believe Scar was desperately in love with Sarabi, maybe I would feel better about the whole thing, but I just left the movie feeling like Scar was being incredibly petty and wasn't consistent as a character. Because we got all this evidence that he really deeply cared about Mufasa in the beginning, and then this girl shows up that he sings about once or twice and awkwardly fails to conduct a coherent conversation with.
You smell like a duck.
And suddenly all that goes down the drain. He doesn't sacrifice anything for her. He doesn't risk anything for her. In fact, Mufasa is the one who does that. He never shows that he's willing to set aside any differences with her. They barely even interact, and when they do, it's not even cute. And we're supposed to believe he betrayed Mufasa over her. I'm sorry, but it was flat out dumb, and I don't know how else to say it. What's even worse, if possible, is that, as I mentioned before, Scar had just lost his entire family. They were so close to some great emotional conflict there. I mean, they could have had Scar mourn the loss of his father, like any rational person would. His father was a manipulative, conniving dictator.
Why would he manipulate you? Why would he do that? No!
And you get the sense that that's where Scar gets it from, which makes total sense. But in the beginning, Scar shows signs of not wanting to follow his footsteps. He prefers hanging out with Mufasa to napping with his father all day, which is what his father says a king does. And he defends his brother from his father's abuse, and even sort of scoffs at power, which shows an almost heroic quality in him, which would have made it even more agonizing if after his father died, he were to dive headfirst into all that bad advice and let go of his noble side entirely, because 1, we would have had a hint of what it would be like for him to be a good guy, and 2, we would actually sympathize with his reasons for betraying Mufasa. Genuinely, when you're writing a corruption arc, all it takes is a hint of goodness in the character to get the audience invested. Like, audiences will fall for anything. They really want characters to do the right thing. But if you want to keep the audience's investment and make the corruption truly tragic, you need to make the character have an overreaction to something that's genuinely bad. When a character loses something they care about, the audience feels sympathy. Therefore, if you want to inspire sympathy for a corrupted character, you should take away something they care about and have that disproportionately affect them. That way, the audience both sympathizes with the character and feels disappointed in their actions, and it creates a great internal conflict in the audience. They know why they reacted that way, but at the same time, they should have reacted differently, and that's what causes you to be unsure whether you should love or hate a character. So if Scar's corruption arc had hinged around him losing his father and his whole tribe, I think as an audience we really would have connected with him better, because there was at least some sense that he actually cared about those things, and we could see he was learning things and picking things up from his father, despite not being 100% on board with all of his philosophies. I think that shows that he does care, and it could have been genuinely believable to watch him mourn their loss and then have that disproportionately affect his opinion of Mufasa, who wouldn't deserve, to be treated badly and betrayed because of that. But instead, Scar's corruption arc hinged around Sarabi, which, in my opinion, we just weren't shown that he cared about that enough to make us sympathize with it, and he ended up just looking like a spoiled prince who turned into a supervillain because he didn't get something he mildly wanted and wasn't that fussed about, really. And instead of having any of that great internal conflict, I go, what the heck, Scar? Overall, what it tells me is that Scar cared more about a little crush he met like a day ago than he cared about his entire family, and that is not a good look. It does not make me feel very much sympathy for him. What's so frustrating about it is that it could have easily been construed to be Mufasa's fault, because he was the one who killed the White Lion's son, and that was the whole reason they wanted revenge. Scar even says so in the end when he finally does betray him. It was just a great opportunity to actually put some passion and emotion into this dry robotic CG hellscape, and they completely missed it. Not to mention that this completely disregards Scar's motive in the original movie, which was clearly just a thirst for power and had nothing to do with Sarabi at all. Not to mention, if Scar was this petty, you would expect him to want to get revenge on, I don't know, the White Lion for killing his father, and not on Mufasa, who happens to be someone he genuinely cared about and spent his entire life with, just for liking the same girl. Like, you would think the threshold for betraying someone that you've known your whole life would be much higher than for some stranger you never met, who is a complete outsider to your tribe, but no. As I said at the beginning, if you haven't seen this movie, you don't need to watch it. It's really not worth your time or money. I hope we can all at least learn something from it about what it takes to write a bad corruption arc so that we never repeat this mistake again. That's right. Every corruption arc from here on out will be absolutely perfect. You're welcome. And I hope you hit the like button and subscribed, because if you didn't, my obnoxious 8.5-year-old cousins are going to be paying you a visit real soon, and trust me, you do not want them in your house. Hit the bell if you don't want to miss any more lessons on storytelling. If you want to support me, you can hit the join button, and anything else? No, I think I hit everything on the YouTube checklist. Huge thanks to my patrons, Township Creators, JF Smith 432, Greg YouTube, and C71C. Can't tell you how much I appreciate you. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!